Hey everyone, thank you for joining us today. This is Andy Kushner, host of The Wedding Biz. I'm recording this introduction just before attending the Engage Luxury Wedding Summit at the Fairmont in Banff. And so by the time you listen to it, the conference is going to be over. However, you can check out our social media postings at Wedding Biz Show to experience some of what happened along with my marketing director, Melissa Fancy, and I. And again, that's Wedding Biz Show. And be sure to follow us as so many exciting things are happening with the show. And we have a major announcement coming sometime in the near future. So for today's episode, I wanted to sit down with Stephanie Bradshaw because for over a decade, I would run into her from time to time whenever my entertainment company would work in the Baltimore market. And I was always impressed with what was clearly a great level of passion and drive. And I watched from a distance her almost rocket ship rise after starting her own business only around 10 years ago. And it's just so astounding to me what she's accomplished in a relatively short period of time and has expanded her offerings not only in the event planning and design market, interior design, and with marketing and brand consultations, as well as hosting an impressive brand symposium. And it's interesting to hear how she builds and trains her team because, as with all of us, we are all only as good as our team and who we surround ourselves with. And we also talk about so much more. And I've interviewed a large number of iconic wedding industry professionals who have been in this business for over 20 years and also want to include who I believe represents the next generation. So enjoy my conversation with Stephanie Bradshaw, and don't forget to check out our add-on segment, The Next Level, in which my co-host Melissa and I suss out some highlights and help translate them into specific tactical strategies you can use for your own business. So, Stephanie, I wanted to sit down with you because I have known you a while and I see you absolutely building an empire. I mean, from what I gather, not only are you an event planner and a designer, but you are offering many other services as well, which we're going to get into today. And the energy and the drive that you have is so inspiring. It makes me tired just thinking about it. You know, how long have you been in the business now?
It's been 12 years that I've owned my own business. I started just doing shop windows for some shops in Baltimore and then kind of was working for a party rental company at the time, just doing little things on the side.
Can I stop you there?
Sure.
I want to go back. Are you from Baltimore, first of all?
No, my father's retired military colonel, so Army brat.
So you were traveling all over, like all over the world or United States?
I did my first 3 years of high school, I did in Germany. And then I came back to the States for my undergrad. And then I went to South Korea for 4.5 years and taught English as a second language after I graduated.
Whoa. Well, when you were in high school, did you already have any interest in this kind of thing, either events or fashion? Did any of this manifest at a young age for you?
I was always moving the furniture around in my parents' house. So I think that was probably an indication, or redecorating my bedroom or wallpapering my ceiling with, you know, posters and pictures and so on and so forth. And I always really enjoyed fashion. So I think it just kind of evolved. And then I became, you know, through my father's traveling, I became inspired by the places and the textiles and the colors that we would see when we were abroad. And I think kind of all of that together with my love of fashion and design got me to where I am now.
So where did you go to college?
Shippensburg University. My undergraduate degree is in marketing and PR.
Oh, it is marketing and PR. So what were you thinking as you were coming toward the end of that experience about what you would do for a first job? Were you clear about what you wanted to do?
Not at all. I know that I was interested in helping businesses grow. And I knew that I liked the process and systems, but I didn't have a clear path for certainly where I would be today. No.
So what was your first job?
My first job out of college?
Out of college.
Oh, yeah. I went to South Korea for 4.5 years and I taught English as a second language.
You taught, what motivated you to do that?
At the time, there was another person that I knew that was doing it through Princeton in Asia, and I knew that there was a position that was open. So my senior year of college, I went over during the Christmas holiday and I ended up interviewing for the job. The teacher was sick that day and they asked me if I would come in and just teach the class during the job interview.
Oh, yeah.
So I said, okay. And I taught the class, and the kids or the students in the class said they had a really great time, and they offered me the job right there. I came back to the States, finished my undergrad degree, did 24 credits my last semester, and then I moved to South Korea 4.5 years later.
How do you think that influenced you? I mean, South Korea, we're talking a couple decades ago. How do you think that affected you and your outlook?
I think it just continued with my wanderlust through, being an Army brat and moving around. I really enjoyed that. I think it's enabled me to be more empathetic to other people and places and situations. And I think it also opened my eyes to how beautiful our world is outside of, our little hometown bubble.
Yeah. At the end of your 4.5 years, then what did you do?
I came back to the U.S. I worked as a dean in the admission office at my alma mater at Shippensburg University. I was in charge of all the international student applications for everyone that was applying to the school. And then I also planned events for them, campaign events or just events for the admission department.
So that was the start then of something connected to the events. Was it something you felt really passionate about in the very beginning? Did it grab you?
I liked helping other people. I knew that I enjoyed that. And I had a lot of international experience at that time from having lived in Germany with my father. And then I did a lot of traveling when I was in Southeast Asia during that 4.5 year period. We had a vacation every 6 to 12 weeks. So I would go somewhere during that time. So that's probably where I got my first taste of event experience, unless, planning parties with my mother at home and, is part of that. My mother used to make really beautiful tablescapes when we were children and everybody had a place card and so on and so forth. So I think definitely came from a combination of all of these stars aligning.
Oh, that's interesting. So you had a job at a national wedding magazine. Was that much later after this experience?
So after working at Shippensburg, I went to work for a boarding school in constituent relations, and I planned all their campaign fundraising events up and down the East Coast. We were raising $100 million for a capital campaign at that time.
Wow.
So that's really where I got my feet wet in planning large budget events for very high profile people in the private school world.
But wasn't that more about logistics as opposed to decor and all of that?
I think it was all involved. I mean, when you're planning events for people that are used to going to events with money, then they want them also to be beautiful. So yes, it was logistics, but you also had to know how to speak to that level of clientele and understand what their expectations are because of the lifestyle that they lead.
So you're still providing an experience then, obviously.
100%.
Wow. So where did you go from there?
So from there, I went to work for a country club doing events, weddings every single weekend. It was a lot. And so I just decided after doing that for a little bit of time, I managed the catering staff and I was director of marketing at this country club. So I got kind of the back of house with on the catering side and the food side and managing schedules and so on and so forth. And then after that, I went to work for the National Wedding Magazine, and that was in Pennsylvania. I helped them open up a franchise there. And then I moved to Baltimore within a year or so after that and worked for a few years there. And then I went to work for a large party rental company in the DC, Baltimore area. And from there, I left them and started my business, and it's been 10 years alone. And I had started 2 years prior, but I wasn't really doing what I'm doing now at that time.
But here's what I'm curious about. Even from there, I can relate to it too. I worked for a Fortune 500 company, IBM, and then Lexmark, and I was getting a regular check and building this music business on the side. But eventually to make that leap to go full time was extremely involved and scary. And I hired a consultant to help me. It took like 2 years. I mean, what was this like for you when you thought of making that leap to start your own business? How did it go for you?
I got fired from a job. So it was a really, I've heard many people say you should be fired from a job at least once in your life.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was the most disappointing experience. And even today, probably, I would say the most disappointing experience of my professional career. I had worked for this company for 5 years, heart and soul. I had a really great personal brand, and I had developed in the Baltimore area a really great name for this company. And, sometimes personalities come in and take over roles as your superior, and you don't always get along with those people. And unfortunately, I think that there was some jealousy within the ranks, and it just unfortunately matriculated into one of us needing to go, and I was the one that was asked to leave.
Well, I mean, having the entrepreneurial spirit that you have, it seems inevitable to me. Either you're going to leave being really frustrated or something like that is going to happen.
I think, you can't say what you would do, but I was very invested in that organization, and I had a lot of respect for a lot of the people at the top there, and that changed when the situation went down. And at that time, I had two choices. I could either go find another job. Well, actually, I had more than that. I could find another job. I could do nothing but feel sorry for myself, or I could go make a name for myself as myself. And it was in July, I think, of 2008. So it was really a difficult time
this is also right around the recession.
During the recession. Ooh. And I feel like I made it through by myself. And in hindsight, it was one of the best gifts that has ever been given to me, because I may or may not have ever done it for myself.
But did it affect, I mean, I would think the answer to this is yes. What about your self-esteem? I mean, even though I understand the circumstances, and again, it's a gift, you look back, it's a great blessing in disguise, but in the moment, it must have been scary as hell. How did it affect your confidence and
Sure,
self-esteem?
I was really scared, but I also knew that at the end of the day, I wasn't being let go for
abilities or skills.
I mean, I was even told in my exit, I'm not letting you go because of your ability to perform at this company. We're letting you go because we feel that there's perhaps some conflict of interest in our two companies. And so I think I was just disappointed in the integrity of the organization at that time, letting personal feelings come in front of making a good business decision. And so I felt confident in my own ability to maintain and have integrity. However, I was really disappointed because I really loved that job.
And I think that must be when I first met you. I mean, I remember you back then at some networking events, and you were a very self-empowered person, and there was a respect for you. I know I admired you back then. And to have that happen, again, it's kind of the impetus, right, to help you make that leap. So while you're going through this, and again, I understand that you're not feeling that it's your abilities and your skills, but rather it's these other factors, almost in a sense, political kind of issues, somewhat. How did you then technically make that transition? Like, you're now on your own. What did that look like in the beginning?
Well, it was right before a NACE conference, I'll never forget, and I was supposed to attend the conference.
On behalf of that company.
Company. And it was almost like a timed sabotage, I felt, and I was like, well, I can go to the conference with no job, or I can go to the conference as myself.
Right. So announce yourself. Yeah. So coming out party.
Yeah. So I quickly made a card, and then I just went as myself. And I think because I had already been very well known in the industry, knew me, and they knew what I was about as just a human being. And I think that my reputation really just carried me through. And there were so many people like you and other NACE folks that were very supportive of whatever I decided that I was going to do.
So I would think that was really empowering for you, right? That's your first time. Here's my card. This is, maybe you're quaking inside, but.
Yeah, it was it was like bittersweet for me.
Yeah.
Again, because I said it before, but I really enjoyed that job. But all of the relationships that I made during that job have been relationships that majority of them I've maintained. And I think I've been able to help, or they've been able to help me as my businesses continue to grow over the last decade.
So what was the first event that you planned and designed on your own under your name? What kind of an event was it?
I honestly don't even remember. I think it was a wedding.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
That's interesting.
I don't remember having this like, okay, I'm going to do it all by myself. It just kind of seemed like I would just do this.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it any better than that.
No, that's interesting.
I was doing interior design at the time because originally I was doing interior design. I wasn't even doing any event stuff on the side when I was let go because I didn't want there to be a conflict of interest.
Sure.
And so I was doing more residential interiors and some shop windows and so on and so forth. And I didn't really go back into events until a couple years after I was let go because so many people kept asking me to do it. So I was busy with the interior
stuff. I was going to ask you, so that's
kind of how I got back into it. And I was like, oh, well, I really do know how to do this. And I've been doing it for a long time. Why would I just put it aside? Because so many people kept coming to me and asking me to do it. So I would do, this baby shower or this birthday party and then, do this wedding. And so then it just kind of evolved from there.
So did you have to do much marketing and promoting at that time?
Not as far as what we think of as traditional marketing.
Yeah.
I didn't take out ads in any magazines or in any wedding publications or websites or anything
so it was
like
just
that. Word of mouth at that time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And it was just me. So I could only take on so many things, and I was working from my house. So it wasn't until a few years later that I got a space, and then I got an intern because it was kind of lonely doing everything by myself.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of where my internship program began. And, I've had, I don't know how many young women and men go through our internship program since that time, but I really didn't know that my business would become this catalyst for helping and mentoring young people, which has been one of the greatest gifts actually that has come out of my business.
I want to talk about interning for a moment because it's a topic. It's interesting. All the interviews I've done, we haven't really gotten into this. And I remember thinking myself in my businesses, I feel like I'm always growing, but especially in the key moments, I thought about getting an intern and I was concerned that, how much real commitment, dedication would they have? And I like now I love training, mentoring. I love it. It means so much to me. And I would not be where I am today if it weren't for all the mentors that I've had. And I still have mentors. I believe in that all the way.
Same.
Yeah. So but an internship program, can you tell me just a little bit about how can you, because it has been successful for you, and I'd heard about this before this, how do you set up an internship program so that it really can work for you like that, and you're not having constant, turnstile, people coming and going.
Well, we have pretty clear guidelines from the beginning. It's an unpaid position and we require everyone to work 6 to 9 months here.
6 to 9 months.
At the beginning of their contract, they sign.
How many hours are we talking about?
We are flexible with the dates and the times because some folks are in school and some folks are not in school, but we require them to be here for a minimum of 10 to 20 hours a week.
Per week. Wow.
And then they have to be 6 to 9 months. We don't really just do, hey, I'm coming back to town for the summer and I want to work some events because it doesn't really go like that.
It's got to be consistent.
And a lot of people think that they want to be event interns or interior design interns, but they just kind of want to show up on the weekend and come to the Four Seasons and do a pretty party. And it just doesn't really work like that, and one of the reasons why my team and I are so successful is because of all the prep that goes into being prepared to execute actually on the day of. Yeah. And so we need, for our entire team to understand the process and the mise en place that goes into it before event day.
Well, how do you qualify them? How do you go about choosing people? What are you looking for?
It depends. As my business evolves, what we're looking for is also evolving. So in the beginning, I was looking for, someone that could work in tandem with me on events. And then, kind of got in a groove with my first. And then we decided, we want to add a graphic design arm to the business. So then we started having graphic design people come through. And I was doing interiors before and I was still kind of handling that. And I was like, now I kind of need a design assistant on the interior side. So we were looking for someone. And then, now my event department needs more support. And so I have 4 young women that work for me full time. And of those 4, 3 of them have gone through the internship program before they got their positions.
Well, and what a great opportunity for you to really get to know them and check them out too, at the same time as training them up, right? I tell them that interning for me is kind of like dating.
For the first couple weeks, like everybody's on their best behavior, a couple months in, maybe you're living together, you've been a little bit more intimate with each other. You kind of know if you're a morning person or if you're not, if you show up on time, if you don't. And so I think after 3 months time, you're like, okay, they want to stay or they want to go. And it's pretty good. I've actually broken interns after one event too, which is also good because knowing if you like something versus you don't like something is equally valuable. Yeah. But then after the 6-month point, like people's starting to get a little antsy and they're like wanting to know, like, is this really going to work out?
Yeah, is it going to monetize for them?
And then normally after the 9-month point, you're really understanding their weaknesses and their strengths, and you're starting to connect them with projects that are highlighting the strengths, but pushing them into projects where they're also growing.
Yeah, got it.
So that's kind of the process here anyway.
How many interns would you have at a time, typically?
Interns are a lot of work. So typically we have 1 to 2. I'd like to take them on in pairs because then they can work in tandem with one another on a project.
Yeah.
But again, a lot of young women think they want to be event people and they just kind of want to show up and like play events.
Right.
And it's not really like that here. And so it's good to have another person if there's like a weaker person or a stronger person on different projects, and then they can kind of pull each other along.
And when you said it's really hard, I can imagine in my own mind, but for you, what do you mean by that in terms of how hard it is to deal with?
It's a lot of time. My role as a mentor to my full-time staff is to teach them how to be mentors to other people. So the job for each of them is to take someone under their wing and work with that person. And so I'm in the business of creating more mentors for other people. And it is challenging, especially when you're in your 20s and you're trying to like get your own work done. And then you still have to pay attention to this other person. And it might be easier for you just to get it done yourself. So learning how to balance that, developing leadership skills that probably they don't even realize that I'm watching them develop now as they have to assign, projects and deadlines and hold them accountable. And I think it's been a really great process for the girls.
Well, yeah. I mean, what's talked about so much with this whole concept in any industry is when you're teaching, you're learning. They say how much you learn from the student. And I think the process of doing that is really self-empowering for them too.
You don't have to be beautiful.
One of the most critical decisions for any event is who you choose or recommend as the live entertainment provider. Sound Connection, the high-powered band, is the single most factor at driving the emotion and success of any party. Backed by a team of expert and custom experience-creating consultants, Sound Connection is honored to have received the most press and most industry awards of any entertainment act in the event industry. Learn more about Sound Connection at theweddingbiz.com/Sound Connection. That's theweddingbiz.com/Sound Connection. So at this point, you have 4 employees. You're saying full-time employees.
Plus myself.
Yeah. And generally, what are the general positions of each person?
So Rachel, who's been with me the longest, she's been with me for 5 years now. She's my lead event producer. Allie, who came on 3 years ago, is my lead in the creative department. She does all of our graphic design. So we design all of our wedding invitations and save the dates and wedding websites and all the collateral that goes along with any kind of social event or corporate event. Laura has been with me for almost a year. She's my interior designer. And then we have our newest member is Belinda, and she supports our events department as well.
Wow. I want to ask you about a quote that I read about you, that you had said, and start to talk more about your philosophy of planning and designing personally. You had said, orchestrating a well-composed wedding not only means planning and organizing all of the logistics, but also designing and molding an event to take you and your guests on a journey through your separate personalities, a journey through your lives as a couple, a journey through the wedding day, and a journey through the event space itself. There's a lot in there. Can you tell me more about that?
I think when people approach us about doing any type of event, but we'll talk about a wedding because it's easier. People want to have, and we talk a lot about this in the event industry, unique experiences. So my job is to really understand the personalities of each of these people, the personality of them as a couple, and the type of experience they want to give their guests. And then how can I take that and use all 5 senses from start to finish.
Yeah.
By the very first thing that they get, the save the date, which is one of the reasons why we have a graphic department, because it gives us more control over our brand.
That. Yeah, right.
So from the first time they open that envelope with
the experience begins.
The experience begins all the way until the very last person gets in an Uber. And my job is to really curate the story of those 2 people while giving this very sensual experience from start to finish. And I think that that's what I meant by that quote.
So can you give me some examples of how you, like you mentioned right in the very beginning, is getting to know the personalities of each individual and as a couple. Do you have any, let's say, techniques that you use in order to do that?
I think just kind of having candid conversation like I am with you right now is a great place to start, and being a good listener and seeing what resonates with that person. Like, and I ask them a lot about their own personal style. You know, the way that they're dressed at the meeting, I can tell a lot about them.
Yeah.
Or how do you decorate your house? Or if money wasn't an object, what designers would you like?
Oh, I like that question. Yeah.
Would you have very clean lines like Calvin Klein, or would you want, you know, to be in a jungle? Like, it just depends, you know, what is your own personal aesthetic? And then how can I kind of take that and put it on crack and make it really unique and something that, you know, people are going to walk away from as a wow. And it's hard when you go to events all the time. You know, you and I are a little bit desensitized to it, but sometimes people have a hard time articulating why one wedding was better than the other, or one event was better than the other. And I think that for me, it's when all the senses are engaged and you can remember the way something tastes, or the way the band sounded when they played the last song, or the way that you felt when the father and the daughter danced together, or what you saw, the ambiance, you know, all of those things together.
I was going to say, I think it's really an emotion. It's a feeling that they get overall. And maybe they're not able to be specific about how that feeling, you know, all the different pieces of it. Can you perhaps...
I ask them, not to interrupt you, but I ask every couple, how do you want the event to feel? How do you want your guests to feel? And that is how I build everything.
Can you give me an example, maybe walk me through a story of a wedding couple and your process, including this, how you then manifested it in the event? You can give as much detail or not as you'd like with decor and design, all of this stuff. But if you can think of a particular couple and just kind of take me through the story of their wedding.
I did a wedding maybe 2 years ago for a young lady whose father had recently passed away.
Oh. And
I remember how important it was that he be there.
In spirit.
In spirit. And so we talked a lot about doing, you know, really special things, you know, for him, and just little tiny details. And it's not always that way. I mean, sometimes parents can or cannot be there. But I think, for example, she had her engagement pictures taken on a beach, and he was like twirling her around. So we did these sweet little coasters that had the silhouette of her twirling around.
Wow,
and then,
I'm so moved just hearing that.
And then after our first meeting, the mother had sent me this photo of her father and the bride walking down the beach, and he was looking at her. And the mother of the bride had said to me, you know, when I met you, I knew that you were the person to bring this wedding to light. And in the photo she sent me, she said that the father was saying, and one day I'm going to give you a beautiful wedding.
Oh.
So we did these sweet little coasters that had the twirling on the front side, and then on the back side, we had the silhouette of the dad and the little girl, and it said, today's that day.
Gosh.
So I think that's just one little example of the types of details that we think about. I mean, I could take you through that whole extravagant, you know, thing with the white tent and the flowers and the linen and the things, but it was really, you know, those little tiny things. And with everyone's wedding.
It is the little things. See, that's a really good point. Like, again, I'm feeling right now, I mean, I have a daughter too. I'm thinking of her. I'm just feeling so moved. And for you not to be afraid to go in that direction either, you know? It
was my idea to give that so the mother of the bride didn't know that we were doing that. That was our gift. We had coasters made and we put them out at the cocktail hour as a gift to her, so that, you know, her husband would be there.
How did she respond to that?
She called me after the wedding and ordered some more. So I think it went over well.
That's good. You know, also through this conversation a little bit earlier, you were talking about even with the couple, and there's a quote here: "Our goal is to create your very own wedding brand." Can you say more about that? What you mean by that?
Well, anyone that knows me knows that I'm very brand conscious, just my own personal brand, and trying to keep that as tight as possible as far as the types of experiences that we give to people. I think majority of the people that seek us out are looking for elevated experiences and attention to detail. And so because we can create all the collateral in-house. It allows us to just really streamline the process and keep that experience really tight. So whether or not we're creating a custom crest or, initials on the save the date that we carry all the way through the menu cards or the escort cards or so on and so forth. I think branding an event like your business is kind of how we think about it.
How would you describe your personal brand?
How would you describe my personal brand? I would like to think that my personal brand is one that is elevated, one that is something that people would aspire to have, one that is still approachable, and
that's a good point.
One that elevates whatever the experience or the brand that we are working with. If I'm doing an event with Black & Decker, for example, one of the reasons why they're choosing us is because they know that working with us is also an elevation of their brand.
Yeah.
And vice versa. So we don't say yes to every project here. We're also only selecting couples that we feel are going to be the best fit for us, but also brands that we feel are going to be in great alignment with our mission.
Stephanie, I want to talk about that for a moment too, because for some people, it's really difficult to say no, especially, if there's some kind of financial situation or even if maybe someone is financially doing very well, but just the fear of the future and stuff like that. How is it that you say no? That's a very powerful place to come from.
I think I really try to evaluate all of the ramifications that something will have. We, in this industry, everyone talks about being busy, busy, busy. And we are trying to take this tactic of being steady. So planning however many months in advance financially, but also in a place where we can enjoy our lives.
Right.
And
that
we work really, really hard, really long hours here. This is not a 9-to-5 job, as you know, in the event industry. I remember early in my career, I used to say yes to almost everything because I just had to, right? It was just me and I was single and
we're
paying for myself.
Is it going to end or we got to make sure we have enough business?
Right. And as an entrepreneur, that feeling never, ever, ever goes away. I still think of that every single day that I get up. I've got these 5 salaries to pay for. How are we going to do this? I mean, it takes proper planning. But I think if I think it's going to have a detrimental effect on not only our name as a business, but also the emotional state of my staff, then sometimes we have to pass on things.
Yeah. Isn't there also kind of trusting that leaving that space open, it's going to get filled obviously with something better that's a better fit, right? It's almost a leap of faith to just trust.
I don't really ever get upset if somebody chooses not to work with me.
Yeah.
Because I want people who work with me to really want to work with me. And I think that there's enough business to go around, especially in the wedding market. There are so many other great planners out there. And I feel like you have to choose who you want to date for the next 12 months or 18 months.
Yes, indeed.
And if I'm not that person and somebody else is a better fit for you, then I think that that's the way that you should go because you want that experience to be how you want that experience to be.
Yeah.
So I try not to get upset when people choose other people.
I love that attitude. And again, I do believe that it just brings, it's not a direct explainable situation, but it just brings then who you should have.
Right. Your energy attracts the type of energy that you want,
right.
I think.
Now, I know that you also, and you mentioned it a little while ago, you offer branding consultations to the industry, and you also host Outspire, right? This annual brand summit. It's interesting. You say that, so you've been in business for yourself for 10 years now.
12, but alone.
12.
Yes.
That's what alone. Roughly how many weddings are you doing per year?
Every year is different. I think our sweet spot is between 12 and 20.
Wow. Okay. Because 20 starts to get on the high end. And then what about non-wedding, or does that include all events?
I'm including in that space any events that go around a wedding. So if we're doing a rehearsal dinner and a wedding and a brunch, or, so that's around our number. It varies from year to year.
Well, and then on top of that, you are doing these branding consultations. Can you tell me something about that and what this annual brand summit is about? It sounds really fascinating to me.
So Outspire is a little pet project of mine, I guess. And when I was thinking of what kinds of conferences and education I was seeking. There wasn't really out in the market that was talking specifically about building a personal brand that wasn't on the scale of talking about marketing, because a lot of people don't really understand the difference between branding and marketing. A lot of people think that marketing is branding, and it's not.
Can you help, for the sake of this conversation, to define the two?
Sure. I think that branding is the way that you project yourself, or the way that your client experience is, and the feeling that somebody has after they've worked with you. Whereas marketing is what you're pushing out into the universe. And so when we talk about branding, a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to rebrand. That means just a logo. It's really not that. It's positioning yourself in the market where you want to be. What audience do you want to be talking to? What verticals are supporting all of that? Mm-hmm. And so for me, I started to think of all of the relationships of really smart people that I knew in marketing and branding, and how could I bring them all together for an experience that would be really intimate and unique and different than other large scale marketing conferences. So we came up with Outspire, which was really inspiring brands from the inside out, was kind of our tagline in the beginning. And we had this logo of this kind of ink in water on marble. So that was something very liquid and something very solid. And we did the conference a year ago when I was 8.5 months pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
We had a really great 2-day conference with 3 events. And then we decided to change the format. I took a year off last year because I had just had the baby. And then we decided to do it again this August the 15th, which is a Wednesday. We're going to do one full summit with a couple speakers in the morning, and then a networking brunch, and then a couple speakers in the afternoon, and a break, and a couple more speakers. And then we're going to meet and greet with those speakers. And then we're going to do an industry-wide warehouse party at Revolution Event Design, which is one of our longtime event partners here in Baltimore.
Is it strictly people, just for a moment, is it strictly people in the event industry?
No, it's not at all. It's entrepreneurs, it's startups, it's big businesses, branding companies, and anyone is really welcome. And the people that we have on the stage we've got someone from Condé Nast, someone from Stanley Black & Decker, we've got someone from the Pendry, we've got a brand architect coming, we've got some video production people, we've got social media people, we've got a really, really, really intense and smart group of people that are going to each talk for about 45 minutes on different subjects and kind of take you from brand architecture and what that is all the way through kind of putting your brand out into the universe, whether or not it's in motion through video or in social media. And then how do you start working with agencies, or if you're a small business, how do you continue to reach the audience and target the audience that you want? It's a very interesting cycle that we're bringing people through.
Well, and then you're working also one-on-one with people and companies too, right?
We do. We do some branding consultations for folks. I don't want to say we don't advertise that, but they kind of come to us because they like our brand and they want us to help them with that. And I have a brand architect that's on my team. And so in tandem, we work together to come up with new logos and collateral and verticals and mission statements and brand identities and so on and so forth. It's a long process.
Yeah. Well, now, and I'm leading to something here in a moment. So one more question here is about, you also just put out a publication, Hughes, right? And can you tell me about that?
So Hughes is a new venture for us. We've committed to doing a quarterly print and digital publication. The impetus for this was to really showcase exactly kind of the scope of work that our team can do. A lot of people just kind of know me in the wedding world because there's always a really beautiful photographer that's there that takes pictures, and, people pass your name along. But we have an amazing graphics department, and we also have a really incredible interior department as well. And so what we really wanted to do was highlight kind of those 3 departments, but also highlight some other people in town, other entrepreneurs that we've worked with, other stories of other folks. And I also host a quarterly networking event for women in business in Baltimore, which has grown exponentially, Cake and Whiskey. And so I think that print is kind of going away a little bit, and that made me sad. And so at the end of the day, we wanted to showcase something beautiful for our community and kind of get the engagement of our community as well. So we have a hashtag for it, which is Discover New Hughes.
Yeah.
And so it's large scale print. It's, 24 inches wide by 18 inches high. And it's something that you don't want to throw away. And so we're going to do it for 4 issues and see if we want to keep doing it or not. Gives us just kind of a little push. And, you always have to do something different in this industry, right? Like,
oh yeah,
Stephanie's doing a publication now. Well, we printed and designed all of it ourselves. So you can see the kind of the scope of our capability.
So this is all so wonderful and very impressive. How are you balancing it all also personally? And you mentioned having a child. Do you have one at this point?
One, Dallas. Mm-hmm.
Okay. You were 8.5 months pregnant. Like, that's another question. How are you continuing to grow your business, deal with a summit like that, and at the same time be building your family?
I think if you were to ask me, one of my number one strengths is project management. And I have an excellent team of very dedicated young women. And so I see where we need to go.
Yeah.
And I see how we have to do it. And then I build a system, and then I teach that system to our team. And then we follow it and execute it with every project that we're doing. So we're just being strategic about planning things out, and then who is going to be managing different parts, and we split it up. And so the same is true when
like
you're
planning an event.
It's the same. So even when we're doing a wedding, someone is working with Rachel, someone's working with Allie in creative, someone's working on logistics, and with me as creative direction. You're not just working with one person, which a lot of event firms do. You have one kind of point person. Here, you really have our entire team working together to execute the experience. So it's really just
so you're super
planning.
Organized.
We
more
are
than
organized.
That.
Yes.
Super. Now, why are you smiling like that? Like, we're talking intense organization.
Intense
discipline.
organization. Yes. Everything is on a timeline. All of our internal time, we have internal systems, internal timelines, and we know when to take projects, when not to take projects, what kinds of things are coming our way. And then you can't always predict what's going to come your way and how you're going to fit something really cool in.
Yeah.
I think it's just time management, and I'm a good project manager.
So how's your own personal time management going? Do you feel like you have a balance?
It's really funny. My staff always jokes with me because I have a bi-monthly meeting with my partner. He comes to the office and we sit for an hour twice a month, and we look at our schedule for the 2 weeks out, and we plan our personal lives kind of like a business, because, I work odd hours, and so he has to cover when I'm at a wedding until 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
And he's in construction management. And so we just kind of work it out. And it's a really beautiful partnership. And obviously everyone loves their children. And so Dallas has been nothing but a blessing, and he's learning to use a broom really early on.
That's smart. That's one way to handle a few issues. What about the pressure? Like, I'm just sitting here thinking all that you have on your shoulders, all that you're responsible for. And I know you're still building and building and building. How do you personally handle do you feel this pressure on a daily basis? How are you handling that aspect of it?
A lot of people ask me that question. They always ask me,
because you
you're
seem
so
very calm.
Everyone says that too.
Right.
I think I mentioned earlier in the podcast, as an entrepreneur, you never lose the pressure of being responsible for the lives of the people that are on your team. I think I just try to be really thoughtful about the planning and the cash flow so that we can sustain, the months where weddings aren't happening, for example, January, February, March, not that many weddings are happening. Well, that's a huge planning stage for us. So I think just kind of looking, well in advance and trying to be as organized and thoughtful as possible is how, I only feel stressed when people like you ask me that question. Extra stressed. I feel the stress, but I had a mentor who really, in my early years, taught me about it's just business, and to just plan, so many months in advance. And so I think, that's the dance that I do every day is.
But here's what I wonder. Again, like you said, knowing in this part of the world that January, February, March is usually slow. Mm-hmm. What is it that you are planning for in that sense? Just simply, obviously, we know cash flow is going to be different, unless maybe that's the time when you really want to bring in a lot of contracts and deposits.
Sure, but we have an interior design department, which we haven't talked about a lot, right? And so people like to design their houses over the winter months. And so a lot of people ask me about my business model because it is very unique. Most people are either interiors or events.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I would care to do a wedding every single weekend of my life, right? I don't want to be away from my son every single weekend. Mm-hmm. What I love about our business model is events and interiors are very similar. You're designing a space in which people are going to live and work or play, and a traffic pattern with different layers, and different scale of patterns and repeats and so on and so forth. And so the interior side kind of fills in for us when my event staff might need a little break.
I see.
And so we might be working on a photo shoot or finishing up somebody's house in Falls Church, Virginia. And then, we have a waiting list for our interiors, which is a really nice place to be. But also really understanding what your own personal definition of happiness is, meaning, do I want to hire another person just to be more busy?
Yeah.
Or do I want to work a little bit more smart on projects that are really interesting and passionate to me?
Mm-hmm.
And then how do I take that many projects on so that my quality of life is what I want my quality of life to be?
Yeah.
Because sometimes more is just more.
See, I think it's sometimes hard to compartmentalize it like that. I admire how you're able to do that so well. And I think that seems to be part of the key to taking that edge off, right? Not only is diversifying yourself, clearly you've done that, and multiple streams of income, and you've done that, but it's being able to, like you say, look at it the way you're looking at it, set it up that way.
Mm-hmm.
You got to really think about it.
You do have to really, I think I'm a very thoughtful person. I would like to think that people that know me well think that of me in a business way, but also just in life, understanding people's love languages, understanding what motivates people, understanding that you need to be fair, but not everybody has to be treated exactly the same way. And not everyone is going to respond the same way to this reward or not. And the quality of life of the young women that work for me, I also want them to continue working for me. And, Rachel's been with me for 5 years and Allie for 3. And I think that that's a testament to not only their work ethic, but, us working together. And I've always told them that I will always meet you more than halfway. So finding people that really want to work hard and that invest in you because you're investing in them, I think is also part of the key.
I agree with that too. I think, sometimes it might not be the easiest thing to remember really taking care of your people in that sense. Because I like to look at my teams, between my two businesses, and I really want to make sure that they are also nurturing themselves, right? Really important.
If you want to leave and go do something on the weekend on a Friday in the summer when we don't have a wedding, then go ahead and do that. They're not punching a clock in here because that's just not how we roll. We're working an 18-hour day or more on a wedding with 3-day installation or something. So, and I want them all to take vacations, and I want them to travel, and I want them to see the world and become inspired and bring that back to our organization, because everyone that's here is super talented.
Yeah.
And inspires me.
So what is your personal definition of happiness and success? Let's add that too.
I think I am happy. I think that I try to be as present as I can when I'm doing that thing. And I know it sounds really funny, but I'm a huge nature person. Anyone that knows me or follows me.
Yes, I read about something about your dream is to be a horse guide on the trails of Colorado. Is that still the case?
No, I would love to, be a guide in the summer or something like that. That would be super fun to me. But I think, I get up every morning. I try to go outside, enjoy nature, and I'm continually being grateful on a daily basis for the littlest of things.
Yeah.
And I think when you start your day very full of gratitude, then it just kind of, carries out. I know it sounds like a little bit of a silly thing, but I really do try to not keep up with the Joneses and just stay in my own lane and do good work. And I think I'm here to help other people be the best versions of themselves and to create more beauty and to showcase especially our city, Baltimore, in a really positive, beautiful light is another initiative of mine, because Baltimore gets such a bad rap. And so if I can be someone that's giving more jobs to our city and showcasing really how beautiful this place is, then I think I'm on the right path.
Wow. What is the best way for people to find out more about you and your various companies and offerings and all of this?
Our website is very accessible. So Stephanie-Bradshaw.com. And then I'm on social media at SB Creative.
Okay.
_. I'm very active on social media. And I'm not one of those posts about a wedding that happened 7 years ago kind of people. I really try to stay in the moment and like what's like kind of happening with me and the team and my family at that time. And that's where you can find me.
Well, we also will put all of this information in the show notes.
Oh, and sbhughes.com too is our new publication.
Got it.
Yep.
We'll put that in there too. Well, wow, Stephanie, this has been great. Thank you so much for, taking time and talking with me like this. I loved it. It was great.
Thank you. I'm very flattered that you included me among this very esteemed group of professionals. And, I've respected you for a long time and your team. And I'm excited as your podcast continues to grow.
Thank you.
And if I can help you in any way, just let me know.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the show. Be sure to check out the show notes at our website at theweddingbiz.com, where you can also subscribe. Again, theweddingbiz.com. And be sure to check out our follow-on segment, The Next Level, in which my co-hosts and I discuss key highlights of today's episode so that you can apply them to raise the level of success of your own business. And since next week is a holiday, we will be airing a re-release of one of the most popular episodes from over a year ago. So be sure to tune in to that one. It's really entertaining. And finally, follow us at Wedding Biz Show. Share our episodes, our show with your friends and colleagues, and have a great week.